I'm Chantal Ambrose. I am a dentist and I host a podcast that shares the highs and the lows of the most resilient healthcare businesses. I interview the movers and the shakers of healthcare who courageously push boundaries. So whether you're a startup or needing a push in the right direction, a family business, or just looking for mentorship, join us. So today I have an amazing husband and wife team. I would love to hear a little bit about what you do and what your focus is on. So tell us a little bit about yourself. This is Dr. Natha and this is Dr. Seedat, and they run a practice called Kromboom Dental. We know that you do focus a lot on pediatrics as well as endodontics, and you have a fair share of aesthetics as well as general dentistry.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick summary about how I started at Kromboom. I started at Kromboom as a locum dentist under Shahnaz Khan, that was the previous owner. So Kromboom Dental Center was Shahnaz Khan's brainchild over a decade ago. I started working there, I guess, after the World Cup, 2010 World Cup, and I just worked myself up in the practice. And she ended up selling the practice to me at the beginning of COVID. And that's basically been 3 years that we've been running the practice. At the time, Farah was working at a practice
elsewhere.
Yeah, elsewhere. And when we took over Kromboom, I told her that we need her help as well, because I can't run the practice on my own, because I'm doing clinical work and I've got to manage the practice as well. So that's how we started at Kromboom about 3 years ago, and we've just been trying to build it, maintain it, and build it.
And from my side, basically, I've always been a hard worker. I can't do something if not giving it my all. And that's usually why I push myself in everything which I do. And that actually has allowed me to gain lots of experience and knowledge. And it's why I feel like I managed to get where I am at my young and tender age.
Well, thank you for that. So tell me a little bit about how do you balance that work-life scenarios?
It's actually quite tricky, I have to say, because at the moment, our relationship has multiple facets. We are business partners. We are also both like dentists that are co-workers. We're also husband and wife, and we're also mom and dad. So it is quite difficult to find which relationship we're in at the moment. But we do try and have rules where when we are at work, we're co-workers and we're business partners. And when we're home,
yeah, I struggle a little bit with that. I'm more the, I wouldn't say business minded. I'm not business minded at all. I suck at numbers. I'm more just dentally focused, and I don't know when to shut off. And I think that's my problem. Luckily, I have Farah to turn the tap off when it needs to go off. But I think slowly but surely, I've learned to now let go of dentistry when I get home in my free time. But I'm trying to find a little bit of balance where I don't burn myself out, because I think I've burned myself out a few times in the past where I just overworked myself. So I think it is difficult, it is challenging, especially in a very busy practice. But you've got to balance things that suits your needs, essentially.
So listen, I think that I appreciate the honesty behind that, because it is a challenge. And for every single person that I've been lucky enough to interview on the show, they've been very open and transparent about how difficult that balance is to get right. so I would love to hear, what is the way, why are you so patient focused? What I call these competitive advantages. And in business, you'll find that your competitive advantage is just something that is currently the almost the glue that keeps the practice together. And for you, and from what I read and from what I hear from both of you, is that your focus is to make that patient happy. It's service.
I would say first and foremost is Everyone who works at our practice is aware of our common goal, which is excellent patient care. And whoever we have employed at our practice needs to understand that. So typically, we would employ people more so based on attitude versus experience or skill set, because we feel as though we can teach someone easily a skill, but you can't teach someone how to be a nice person, for example. So the common goal, we harp on this all the time, and everyone does know that now. So the first and foremost thing is that we ensure that each employee constantly remembers that common goal, which is to provide excellent patient care.
Yeah, the patient-centric or centered focus starts at reception, in our opinion, because that's the face of the practice, either via the phone call or via email, or actually in person when the patient walks in. So that area has been one of our main areas to target, where we upskill our receptionists to be able to deal with any patient that walks in by the door, and to also understand the patient's expectations, their needs, and then to deliver the patient to the correct clinician, essentially, whether it's for cleaning, whether it's for a dentist. Yeah, that's essentially what we've done in the beginning. So work on the reception area, and then we've also then worked on the clinicians as well.
And basically, each patient needs to feel as though they're valued in each sect of the practice, whether it's reception, the dental assistant, the dentist, the oral hygienist, the accounts department, or even the management team. Each sect needs to treat that patient as though at that moment in time, they are the most valued person that they're dealing with, which is very important. And we also have systems in place for follow-ups, for example, so that nothing slips through the cracks. We also definitely feel like taking care of the employees and making them feel cared for helps them, or helps make it easier for them to take care of someone else. Because if they feel appreciated, if they feel seen, they'll be more motivated to make patients feel that way as well. So we try and do things to uplift our employees and just build a team and keep everyone happy and thriving, because it definitely helps us deliver that goal of patient-centered care.
A key element for us is to eliminate any toxicity amongst staff, because we're quite a big practice. I think we have about 26, 27, 28 people, and there's 2 more dentists joining us soon. So it's very important to make sure everyone gets along, everyone understands each other, and that there's no toxicity amongst the staff. Because if there's toxicity amongst the staff, then patients will pick up on that. So essentially, eliminate toxicity, create a happy environment in the workplace, a jovial environment. It's very important for us to have younger people. I'm not saying we're anti-old people. I'm one of the older people at the practice, but I try to be a little bit not immature, but I try and keep up with the young ones. And it creates a very nice environment that makes it stress-free, anxiety-free for the patients. They pick up on this. They mention it all the time. You guys have a very nice vibe. That's the word that they'll use. So if you work on your team, and your team plays the game with you as the clinician, then you'll be successful.
Basically, a happy team is a productive team, and that is actually the bottom line. And something else which I also feel is very important, actually 2 aspects, is that we lead by example. So our employees have never seen us treat a patient or a fellow employee unfairly, even under challenging circumstances, if you know what I mean. So because they've never seen us doing that, they wouldn't do it either easily, for example. And I think another very important aspect of patient-centered care is being adaptable. So we adapt to every single patient. Everyone in the practice adapts to each patient. So if a patient doesn't like something, we will adapt to them to make them feel comfortable. So people who work with us and for us need to have that characteristic where they are adaptable. Because if they aren't, we aren't able to provide that patient-centered quality care.
Yeah, our unsaid motto at the practice is above and beyond. So you always have to go above and beyond for your patient. So I'll give an example, a couple of examples. A patient, for example, that is paraplegic, comes in with a wheelchair. We don't turn them away. We'll make a plan to see that patient. We'll find out, can the patient get into the dental chair on their own? Does the patient need assistance? What are the other needs for the patient? So before the patient comes, we've already prepped a room that's as comfortable for that patient as possible. So we've dealt with paraplegic patients, autistic patients,
Special needs,
cerebral palsy patients, from young and old. We've dealt with, I remember having a patient many years ago that was bedridden, physically unable to move. He was photophobic as well, and we actually got an ambulance to bring him to the practice, and we managed to treat him because nobody wanted to treat him. And there was a shout out from his mom to ask if we're willing to help. I went to the house, did an examination just briefly in his room, and we arranged for the ambulance to come. So that's an example of going above and beyond for your patient and delivering the treatment that's needed for the patient and maintaining the same level of care that you basically or that's expected from you. So those are small examples of being patient-centered.
Okay, that's actually really, I think it's succinct because it's to roll out something that is patient orientated requires quite a lot. And I think both of you just summarized that it's actually quite an intricate process to be able to get that right for every patient every time. And sometimes you just don't. So, even with the best team and the best attempts, you still get the patient that's they're still unhappy, or they still sort of have something that they want to negotiate on. How do you deal with that? A figures guide.
So I would say the first thing is investing time in reception, because they are usually the ones who deal with patient complaints first. So I find that taking time with them and upskilling them is a key element in nipping something in the bud. So usually every Friday, we are closed for like an hour or so, and we actually have training in that hour. So whatever happened during the week that was concerning or whatever the case is, they must make a note of it, and we'll discuss it on Friday with our HR. We can only learn. Things will definitely go wrong, but when it does go wrong, it's an opportunity to learn and do better and teach as opposed to punish. So we're constantly trying to improve on things that we need help with. So, for example, we have a operating procedure when somebody, say, has an issue or a complaint. We try and go through the motion of doing X and Y, investigating further, always having at least two sides of the story, not just one person's version. We have to hear both sides, gather what the facts are, and then call the patient back or email them back and offer them solutions. We don't try and fight, we try and offer solutions. And the one thing is that we always try and do our best. And if that best isn't meeting the patient's expectation for the patient's best interest, we'd rather recommend them to be referred to someone else, for example, because if our best isn't good enough, unfortunately, we aren't able to do more. So we always try and offer solutions and not
exacerbate the issue.
The conflict. Yeah. And actually, I have to mention that I attended a CPD event recently where you actually spoke. And I recall taking lots of pictures of your PowerPoint presentation because it was so insightful. And subsequent to that, I actually discussed those exact strategies with our front team. And hopefully that will aid them even more now in dealing with patient conflict.
Yeah. But that's
I just want to say to the listeners that I did not pay her to say that, by the way. So I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that anyone that knows anything about me is that I'm very focused on helping as many people as we can all the time. And I think that I've been lucky enough to come across a lot of people that have asked for help being in different aspects of where they are in their careers for different types of things. And a lot of us are just really learning by our mistakes. So you go in, there's no mentorship. You're hoping that you're just going to improve. And the game plan sometimes is not something that you orchestrate. It's something that just happens.
I think one of the most important and easiest things is just complimenting and reassurance and acknowledgement. So when someone does something that I think is quite thoughtful or quite nice, I'll mention it. Even if it's something small, I will say, thank you so much. That was very kind of you. And just that little acknowledgement actually motivates them to do more and want to do more.
Yeah, so we have group chats for different departments at the practice. So we have a social media chat where we also post up reviews that have come in, whether it's positive or negative, and we try and give the whole team an idea as to what's happening. So it also reinforces it's pointless having a team that's been coached in doing a certain thing, but they never reap the rewards of it. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll always applaud and make a big boo-ha about something positive that was either said verbally by a patient or, for example, a review or an email that came in to say thank you. We'll make a big deal out of that. But if something negative happened, we'll deal with it in a slightly different way. We won't pick on the person that maybe made an error or that could have done something differently. We'll rather speak to that person privately, and we don't expose that person to everyone at the practice. In that way, you don't hurt feelings. In that way, you don't make that person feel belittled amongst their peers. And that way they feel respected as well. And that's why they enjoy working at the practice, because you're not picking on them for doing something wrong. You're rather trying to eliminate their weaknesses and you're focusing on their strengths.
And I mean, everyone's human. We all have weaknesses. And I would say the key is, I mean, we know people's weaknesses, so we try and work on it. So, for example, if one receptionist isn't the best at communicating a certain type of thing, I will then do it myself for a patient, let them watch me do it. They have an example of what to follow.
Yeah.
And just constantly reminding them this is how we should do things, and teaching and not belittling, like he said. So I think respect is a very, mutual
Respecting the
respect,
individual, their input's very important. So when we make decisions at the practice, it's not the boss that makes the decision. It's made as a unit, as a team.
Based
Everyone's
on
input is given. So even amongst the dentists will give their input, as well as the dental assistants, as well as even the cleaner. Anyone can say anything. It's carte blanche. You can say what you want. Your opinion is valued at the practice, and there's no belittling. But the main thing is anybody can speak to anybody. There's no hierarchy. You can't speak to the king. You have to speak to this guy first to get to the king. It doesn't work like that. It basically works that if you need something, just come and ask.
And I think one of the other big things as well is that we like to think of ourselves as leaders as opposed to bosses. And because our employees can feel that, they feel as though we are a team working towards a common goal, as opposed to a boss who has a common goal and wants people to work towards it to get there for him. All of us together, we're in this together. We all have a common goal, and we all have to help each other reach that common goal.
Okay, so other than the power team, who are these power personalities that are sitting on your team? Because usually for such a big practice, you have a finance manager, you have an HR manager. They're just helping you with just that operative processes and systems. So tell us a little bit about what roles you've assigned and delegated in your team that will report to you so that you can make such decisions.
First and foremost, we have the most amazing practice manager who has been there since before you were there, I think.
No, she came afterwards. But she's worked with me at a previous practice as well. So I knew her from before. So she's actually a qualified oral hygienist, and she grew into that position over time.
So she is the most regulated, level-headed, wise person that we know, and we can trust her, which is so important. So we truly, truly value her. And honestly, we would not be able to provide the service that we do without her there. Because if something goes wrong, she is the go-to person to fix it. So and
she's very level-headed as well.
Yeah.
So she doesn't treat anybody unfairly. She never loses her temper. I think in over 10 years that I know, I've only ever seen her get angry just a little bit. She's amazing, our practice manager. we've got a second practice manager
A
as well.
junior manager,
We'll
yeah.
call it junior, but he's got a second set of duties. So he took over. He started off as a receptionist, and then when our practice manager went on maternity, he stepped up into that role. But we gave him that position because he had the ability to step up and basically focusing on strengths. You know what the person's strengths are, and you pushed him in that direction. So we're all about growing our individuals, and that way the business also grows.
So he plays a pivotal role in like the practice hardware. Like for example, if I want to improve the computers here and there to get a new app to do a to-do list, he's the person to go to.
Yeah.
So he helps us improve in that sense, where we become more technologically
More
advanced
efficient,
and
yeah.
more efficient and productive, which definitely also plays a role in us being able to provide a good service because of efficiency. And he plays a pivotal role in that. And of course, our main receptionists, who are absolutely amazing. They are truly amazing. The set that we have now, I truly admire them. They I mean, just the one had some dental experience prior to working for us. The other two had none, and they've just flourished. So definitely our receptionists and our dental assistants, they are just amazing. Really,
Yeah.
they are
They're the
so
most hardworking people that we know. So we have, for example, my assistant was off today, ill, on short notice. And just by asking one of the other nurses if they don't mind working a double shift, no problem, done, sorted. So that's the nice teamwork that we have going there. If someone's off ill, if someone has a family responsibility day or their child's sick, someone's always going to help cover you. And vice versa. So there's a very good team ethic, team morale. I'm very big on focusing on team morale because I've worked with toxic teams before, and it makes work miserable for everyone. So I think a very important element for me is the team cohesion, the team gelling together, getting along together. That just makes everything so much easier, because dentistry is not easy. It's stressful. And with some of the patients that we see, they make it even more stressful. So if you have a good team, it makes your difficult day a little bit easier. So we're very big on focusing on team happiness. And I think that does make our jobs a little bit easier, actually much easier.
Yeah.
I've got a dental assistant that's been working with me now for about 8 years, maybe more. And people always ask us if we're family, because we are pretty much the same in how we treat patients and how we speak to patients. So that's how well we get along, and that's what we're looking for, is building an identity amongst or within the business that the patients can pick up, and patients pick up on small details. So very important to focus on your team. If you have someone that's chewing gum in the background while you're busy talking to the patient will notice that. So it's little details, being respectful, being empathetic, and being very professional and being competent. Those are the key elements for being successful as a team.
I'm wanting to know something that's really important that I want to share with people is when you're thinking of making that move of buying somebody's existing practice, it actually comes as quite a lot to think about. Is there just like a quick sort of 5 tip list that you have for somebody who wants to buy an existing practice?
I would say, firstly, it's not easy, number one, and you have to understand that and expect it. Like, expect it to not be easy. People generally do not like change, and just know that it's going to be a gradual process. Number two, just be aware that patients are always going to compare the old with the new, which can be quite rough to hear initially because you might doubt yourself and doubt what you're doing, but just persevere and again, always do your best, and what's meant to happen will happen. I would say also understanding is super important. Understanding the patients, the practice, the people who work there, the demographic, all those type of things. So if possible, try and either shadow there for a while or better yet, work there as a dentist for a while before actually buying it to get to know how things work would definitely be
Yeah.
beneficial. And Go in there with the mindset of being a leader as opposed to a boss. That's the way you're going to get people to actually hop on board with the ideas that you have and actually make a difference and successfully transition into making it your practice, for example. And just also know that respect is earned and not just given. And a very good tip is start actually at the bottom and work yourself up, because in my opinion, you can't expect someone to do something if you can't do it yourself. And if your staff see you doing it and then you ask them to do it for you, they can't say, oh, she can't even do it herself, because they've seen me doing it myself. And so when I ask them to do it, they are much more willing to do it.
Yeah. I think besides the obvious of doing financial due diligence, etc., I think to find if the practice is meant for you, I think the point that you made of going to either work at the practice or shadow at the practice is a very important thing, because you'll be able to pick up whether you will fit into that practice's current ethos or vision that they have there, and the type of dentistry that they practice as well. And then you'll be able to see whether you can fit into that mold and improve it, because everyone has their own what's the word,
Vision.
Vision of how they want to practice the industry, where the end goal is. So if the practice is, let's say, a very, very modern practice, you've got to fit into that modern practice. You can't come with old skills and you've got equipment and materials there that you've never used before and then expect it to be successful, because your current patients are used to that standard of care and expect further upgrading in technology and methods in the future. So you need to fit in first and then grow with the practice. That's very important, I feel, to be successful. You can't just fit in like a Lego block that just clicks in together immediately. I think easier way in, either as a locum dentist or shadow for a while, understand the staff, understand the materials, the equipment, the patients as well.
The expectations.
Yes. And then you'll be able to be more successful. I think that's the most important thing.
How do you make that paradigm shift from being that person working on your own to taking on a practice that you're going to own for having other people work for you?
I'm going to go back to when I first started there, because I came from smaller practices before. I was never in a solo practice. I was always a locum, and I think the biggest practice I worked at was maybe just 2 people, 2 dentists. But Kromboom was a total paradigm shift for me when I started there, because when I started there, we were 8 dentists, I think, at the time, and there were 4 oral hygienists as well. So you've got to find the advice I would give is, if you're taking over the practice, you've got to find your niche in dentistry and you focus on that niche. And that's what I did when I joined. I focused on, to be specific, just certain fields of dentistry, and I tried to be as perfect as possible in those fields. So I'm constantly upskilling in just endodontics or crown and bridge or restorative work, and I don't touch anything else. Whereas Farah, on the other hand, will focus on different things. So yeah, it's difficult, but find the niche that you're good at, and that's the only way that you'll fit into a bigger practice. I think sharing the load. Yes.
That's joining, not buying
Owning.
a practice where people work for you. I would say get help where needed. For example, get the outsourced accountant, employ a practice manager, get an HR outsourced to help you, because it is going to be tricky initially. Outsource where possible, like join a legal organization where you do have access to legal advice where needed. Get your accountant to do whatever they can for you in terms of payroll and pay as you earn and workman compensation. Let them handle that and just oversee everything, because it is almost impossible to do everything yourself initially. So get people to do it for you and to help you learn how to do it. And when you are comfortable, then you can potentially eradicate X and Y and do it yourself. But don't be scared to ask for help. And I would say definitely, if possible, the person you're buying the practice from, get a really good handover process, which is what I did, because like he said, Nazir was already working at Kromboom. but I had to join there from working from someone else. So I had multiple one-on-one sessions with the previous HR person, with the previous owner. We chatted for so long just to give us, or just to give me the down low, how to do things, do this when this happens. Here's a directory of of people you may need to call. And that really helped. So use the previous owner where possible and get a really good handover document or session or whatever the case is. And don't be scared to ask for help.
Okay, so I think that you both have covered some amazing topics here, and I think that it's going to be very useful for a lot of people in different aspects of where they are at in dentistry. And I always end the show with something that I call one word wonders. So I'm going to ask a series of questions, whatever comes to your mind. Okay, so your daily stress reliever is?
Meditation.
YouTube.
My dream supercar is?
Audi R8.
I've got a few.
You got a few dream cars, okay. So worst advice that you took in business?
Be hard on your staff.
Okay.
Worst. I can think of quite a few. I'll say the worst would be, I think examples that were sent to me were being hard on staff.
If I could put my practice anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Cape Town, for sure.
Yeah, I've never wanted to leave Cape Town.
So where do I see Kromboom in 5 years' time?
Flourishing, hopefully growing and expanding.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, I just see us growing. That's the idea. I'm going to be back.
And best advice you could give anyone?
Do your best.
I just want to thank Dr. Natha as well as Dr. Farah Seedat for all of the words of wisdom. We're wishing you very well, and we hope to see you soon at our next show. Thanks so much. I've covered starting up and how to turn your vision into a business. And in our future episodes, we look at leadership, we look at multi-practice success. Now, I'm grateful for you, and I would love to hear your ideas. What questions do you need answered? Please drop me a mail at behindasmile2@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And remember, you are heard, you are seen, and on this platform, you are invited. Let's make it happen together.